All right, we are back with episode number 4 of the Solos podcast. We've had a few great discussions. We've had the masculine perspective of the inner mind. We've had your lovely wife Deborah on for the feminine perspective. Would like to just kick off today, Ryan, with just some thoughts, some review thoughts of our podcast from last week. Anything stick out to you? Is there any subjects that are still bobbing above the surface that we need to hit today?
I think there were some questions and things that we didn't get to with the last episode that I wanted to kind of touch on, like the um, feminine relationship to sex specifically, and to kind of how we related the masculine dependence to porn, and kind of what that looks like there, and how the masculine can be devoted to the kind of like dark feminine internally in a way, and the feminine can be devoted to like the false father, the false king. And so there's definitely some stuff there that we didn't really get to touch on. But I'm not sure if we want to do those questions on another episode. And this is kind of just have a thought dump, like you're saying, a thought review on this one of the previous 3 weeks, and kind of the calls and stuff like that. Because we usually come on here with a specific structure and specific things that we're going to touch on. And right now it's kind of like, we'll see what comes up. We'll see what we need to talk about.
Yeah, no, I feel like we can close the loop, even though we don't have our feminine correspondent on our
Hmm.
our episode today. But
Hmm.
yeah, this the devotion to the dark father, is that how you put it?
Yeah, to the false father.
False
It's like
father.
the false father archetype and the king of tyranny.
Mm,
And so in like the episode with Deborah, we were kind of touching more on like the artificial aspect of beauty, and how women can get, and men can get, very caught in this like commercialized kind of feeling of beauty, and how this is then related directly to like their relationship with their internal masculine. And
mm,
if they're in this um like power dynamic with the internal masculine, then that's what's going to reflect on the forefront. And I think the thing that I wanted to get to on this is like how these dependencies can lead to someone going negative, can lead to someone going service to self. Like we have this line of people, we have this trauma, we have this karma, and that these things can create behaviors and actions. And there's a lot of people in kind of just like the current of it, the inertia of it, and they're trying to find their way. But then there's people who take these dependencies and they make it their life, and they embrace those dependencies as their personality, as and then they can take it really far into what we know of as, like dark avatars and dark beings and shapeshifters and things like that. And so I think it's really important to show the line of like how these things and the way we're influenced is this door that then opens, and then it makes it very easy for people to just kind of walk through that access point and begin living their life in a way that's completely inverted, rather
mm.
than like bouncing back and forth trying to, figure things out, I guess.
Yeah, because it becomes cloaked inside of, potentially positive things or outwardly appearing positive things sometimes. I
Hmm.
think what you're saying is, this is why Solos is so important because we're focusing on the architecture, right, of how to build this out and what's at the core of everything. And unless that continually is re-examined, you're at risk for building something on a foundation that is what you're saying here, right? So like
Hmm.
the dark. So it takes that constant yeah, reflection, examination of the intention. That was one of the takeaways from last podcast that we talked a lot about, was the intention of why we do things. Why might a female, be um, outwardly project sexuality or wear revealing things? What's the intention behind that? Is it for empowerment reasons? Is it for attention? So just to
Hmm.
qualify, why we're doing things, I suppose, is the yeah, to understand the architecture of everything that gets built on top of that, because there can be success and good things that happen right on top of whatever foundation is there, but unless it's built on that really core structure of, I don't know, what would you call that? Like truth or light, then it's just a matter of time and you can go 5, 10, 20 years of living life a certain way and then have it like crumble like, oh shit, this isn't what I want after all these years.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like it's the voice that's built off of it's not love. And I think even being devoted to truth and light can be dangerous because that's
Mm.
where people aren't holding the concept of love. And it's like they see love as this thing that's been manipulated and distorted, and that this people being in a positive blinders kind of mind state, that's what someone can kind of interpret that spiritual love is. So I've heard people actually say like, no, the like the oneness of reality isn't based off of love, it's based off of truth.
Mm.
And I heard that and I was like, well, that feels dangerous. Like that feels like where the delusion starts because people have these different ideas of what truth is when it's outside of love, and then they follow what the truth is. Well, they start enacting these lower kind of foundational behaviors in the process.
Mm. I was going to ask you the difference between love and truth. It's sort of like the triangle rectangle example, like or I'm sorry, a rectangle square. So a
Mm-hmm.
square is a rectangle. So I'd say love can be truth. I might be getting this wrong, but the other can't be true, right? A rectangle can never be a square. Does that make sense where I'm going with that? The analogy I'm trying to draw. So like one, it can be that, but if like love needs to be the square so that the rectangle can also be love. But if truth is the square, then you might have love without you might have truth without love.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like they have to become synonymous with each other. It's
Yeah.
like God has to mean love, love has to mean God, love has to mean truth, truth has to mean love, which also means God. So it's like the triangle,
Yeah.
but they all are the triangle. So it's
Right.
like different words to describe what we're perceiving, but it's all the same triangle. And so it's all the same thing. We've just created separation between what truth is and what love is because we look at people who are not in an actual state of unconditional love and they claim it's love. And so then we try to look for truth instead of that love.
Mm. So how would you define the difference if we're defining God or love? What words would you put to that?
All is of or nothing is. That's the most simple way to see it, is like all is of source. It doesn't mean that all is acting on the source frequency of integrity, but the source is love. The source is truth. The source is God. And so all things in the experience are of that source. But some of those uh, aspects of that source might be acting in different types of vibration. And so it's like the truth is the objective fact that all is God, that God is all. And so from that state, that's what love is too. Love is not like there's layers to love because you're going to show love to partnership, intimate partnership differently than you're going to show to a stranger. You know, it's like it's different, but you're going to be in love for all. So it's the recognition that the truth is that all is of love and all is love and all is source, and that is what God is. And so it's like God goes from being this distinct individual thing to being the inclusion of everything. And that God, when we say I devote myself to God, it's a devotion to the principle of God. It's not a devotion to this like separate thing. It's a devotion to we are all one, and the objective truth of that oneness is love. And I am a part of that objective oneness. Therefore, I am God, and I am devoted to God as the plural.
We need a transcript of all that just to map that out.
I
Well,
think Zoom records the transcripts. I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
That'd be interesting to read back. But while you were speaking that, I felt my like consciousness kind of pull out and like see things from this above perspective. I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like
Hmm.
so often we can feel separated from that God, that source, that love of why am I experiencing this? Or like I must have done something wrong. That's the way I feel sometimes. Like I feel separated from it and I shouldn't be experiencing this thing or but there's always a lesson, there's a purpose in it, right? And that is the essence of the love, is that if you look at it that way, then you can see the reason that I might be having that experience is to come to that truth of love of God.
Exactly. Exactly. Because the separation is the choice. It's the choice to perceive things as separate. And here's where we get really caught up is that we define separate as something that's individual. But separate is separation. It's separate from
Hmm.
things. But that is what throws us off because we see with our eyes, and I say, oh, you're separate from me. You're in a different state than I am. You're in a different location. How could we be in unity when we're clearly separate? But being individual and being individualized is much different than being separate because if we are all one consciousness and the consciousness is everything, then the air, the distance that seems to separate you and I, is actually the substance that connects us at the very same time. We're breathing the same air, the same substance that is where you are, is where I am, is where everybody else is on the planet. And so we're all breathing, we're all in the ocean of air, which is the ocean of consciousness, which is the ocean of love. So we are not separate from these things. Like this lamp isn't separate from me. It's just individual. It's an individual form, but we are both of the same substance.
Such an important distinction to make. It's like a different expression of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's required to get this alternative perspective of love. So we're kind of after the same thing, but my experiences will be different than yours, but they won't be separate from yours.
Yes,
Because when we pull it all up to a certain point, we can see from that vantage point your experiences and my experiences and how they kind of all pull back into the same thing.
exactly. It's the uniqueness, like really representing the uniqueness rather than like the separation and the sameness. It's like because the delusion comes from being caught too much in the unity and or being too caught in this in the individuation.
Yeah.
So it's like if you go too far into the unity, then you are blinded with that unity, and you're going to probably start to take on traits where you're not honoring people's boundaries because you are one with them and you are God. And so you see yourself as God, and then other people are that same thing, but you're not seeing other people as that thing first, and then you are the same thing as them. It's like
Mm.
this two-way street that both directions have to be moving on either side. And if you're just in the individuation, then it's like we're all separate, we're all individual, and there's no unity, versus we're all unified and there's no uniqueness. That unity becomes the merging of the hive mind. And that's what the hive mind is compared to the positive unity, the positive heart. It's like the um the sacrifice of uniqueness for the herd mentality
Mm.
versus the tribe mentality. It's like you must sacrifice your uniqueness and blend into these boxes that we're giving you so you can contribute to the herd. in the best way because the herd needs you. It's the same thing as COVID. It's like, well, you
Hmm.
need to get your vaccines because you need to contribute to the herd mentality. Like, and it's not recognizing the uniqueness in the individuation. And so if we're holding both of those states, then we can find that balance because like you and I had that conversation a couple weeks ago of like the further we go up per se up in awareness, then we just become the same thing. And that's where we our individual self gets confused because we hear about oneness, we hear about the literally being the same being, but then we get shown as we go through these layers like we literally are the same being. Like there is no difference. And then when you move through the layers, you can perceive the uniqueness. And so
Yeah.
it's like we're the same soul, we're the same consciousness, we're the same being, and we're in unique bodies right now. And we have different expressions, different combinations of those vibrations. And so that's where that balance, I think, comes in. And that's where the line gets drawn of like, are you separating these two things? Are you pushing the individuation away from the unity?
And what would cause somebody to perceive that in a distorted way? Is it just a perception problem? Is it trauma related? Like why does somebody have a desire to lean more one way or the other?
Yeah, well, it's all going to be based on like the trauma that's in the soul and the karma. And like if if a soul in a bunch of other lives has chosen negativity, they've chosen to be that embodiment and they come into this life, they're going to have a strong inertia of that negative polarization. So they're going to have ideas and emotions and thoughts that push them into separation. So that separation can come in different ways, whether it's an inferiority complex or a superiority complex. It's the feelings of the amplification of the small self, which would be having people identify with the ego. And so it's like the savior victim hero mentality. That's essentially what it is. And
Yeah.
so as we then go into more spiritual awareness, polarization, we then get these temptations to like be these roles and be these characters. If we needed to be saved when we were a kid and we didn't have that, that support, then we're going to have this projection that we need to save all these other people. And then there's ideas that could come in that say, well, you're the most important person on this planet. You're the only one that thinks about that. Like you're the one that's here to do all of that while all other people sit on their ass and clearly don't understand the level of things that you understand. And it comes a lot. That's the superiority complex. But then there's also an inferiority complex. And inferiority complex can do the same exact thing. They're so inferior to the world, to God, to love, that they have to take on the victim mentality and start fucking everything up.
Mm.
So it's like the two kind of sides of being able to, it's like the negative sides. It's like, are you going to be the savior or are you going to
Hmm.
be the victim? Because
Right.
the positively polarized beings aren't the ones that are taking like a savior type of archetype.
Right.
Yeah.
But you could see why people would get caught up in that. There are so many problems in the world today to solve that sometimes we feel responsible for, especially when we get exposed to it. Some suffering, across the globe. I'm supposed to just accept that and not do anything about it. And it's like, well, all we can do is what is in our circle of control, right? And that's if everybody did that, that is how it works. So there are lessons embedded in what I'm responsible for and what my mission is versus like take biting off too much or more than I can chew. But also you can go too far in the other direction where you have things in your circle that are you're just letting, fester and get out of control. So like how can you even think about like someone suffering over there when you're causing people to suffer in your own circle here? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
just do what you like what you're capable of and what's right in front of you, what you have control, what you have power over. Is it that simple? Am I making it too simple?
No, it is that simple, but I think people just get confused on the focusing on yourself first in order to make that be the most positive service, because it's like we've gotten so used to selfishness and so used to the ego running the show that the concept of being of service to others means that you help others, when it's like that's not the definition of what that actually
Yeah, let's
means.
def I want to define that. Yeah,
It
yeah, let's
is the
define that.
definition, but it's the effect, it's not the cause. It's just the effect from you loving yourself and from
Mm.
you being in your heart and doing the things that your intuition and your heart are asking to do. And that might be it might not mean you're directly interacting with people in healing services, or it's like there are healers and master guardians in all different industries in the world. I think about Christopher Nolan. He's like, that man has taught me so much about reality, so much about reality. And he makes movies. And his stuff is just as potent as sitting down with some philosophy expert who can teach you the ways of life. It's like he provides this kind of puzzle piece that then it's like you have the opportunity to learn and to grow through that. And there's people who are in, government positions who we never hear of, ever hear of. And they're doing things for the right reasons. They're doing things for their heart. There's people who are, like, I think the example that always comes up is like someone being a cashier. It's like, if you're a cashier, it's like, who's the one showing up? Is it the depressed one, the victim, the or are you able to actually stand in the space of feeling like you're contributing through your life? And if you can't feel like that, then you probably need to make some changes. So it's a direction, it's a compass, but again, it's the two sides. It's like we can't push onto one side or the other,
Yeah,
because we've got to be able to just be in our life and then allow that alignment to integrity to then form what we are choosing to do, because it's going to shift throughout our life too. It's going to come
right.
in waves of
Changes.
phases. Yeah,
It's interesting the catch 22 of if you're too overly focused on helping others before following your heart and being in your heart, then you're actually pushing away the thing that you're trying to accomplish
exactly.
because you're out of alignment with like what you really want to do. And that's why, the whole adage of like follow your heart, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true and it's powerful. Like when you're
Yeah,
doing that, then you naturally lift up others because you're loving what you do. You're giving off this vibration of like I'm loving where I am instead of like I need to fix something or something is wrong, and I'm going to save it.
yeah, because that's the state of control, right? It's the once control becomes the driver, that's where you're going down a hijacked path. Like that's where things become complicated, because it's like the people who I see that are in the strongest like legitimate spiritual delusion are the ones who think they're helping others.
Mm,
They're the ones who think that they are giving this service to others as these master teachers. When then there's another level of people who recognize that they are, um how do I put this? It's like there are people who recognize that they don't even want to be looked at like they help others. And
mm.
they then take a path of just hurting, of harm, of destruction. And that's a different type of experience than someone who legitimately thinks that they are helping the world by what they're doing. But then it becomes a paradox, because the terrorist thinks that they're helping the world by what they're doing. The
Mm.
dark avatar who is trying to implement overlords on planets and enslave humans, it's like they think that is the best possible outcome for reality. They think that that is the way that reality is supposed to work. Because if they knew that there was a God that was more truth than what they believe in, then they wouldn't be in that predicament.
Is that true? Is their compass truth, and that's what they think that their version of truth is just distorted? Is that the problem?
Yeah. That's
Because I
exactly
wonder
what it
that, like,
is.
why is that happening? Why is there enslavement? Why is there, things that are happening that are so obviously not based in love, but it's
Yeah.
because they think they are? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know if they think that it's based in love, but they think it's based in truth.
Okay.
And so they believe that that is the objective fact of reality, that time is a consumer, that you must sacrifice to time, that time controls everything, and that in order to have control of time, you have to sacrifice things. It's the sacrificial mindset.
Hmm.
And so it's like sacrificing the heart, sacrificing humans, sacrificing animals, sacrificing souls. It's all this devotion to their God that they think is then going to help them live in the best reality that they can live in.
So
And
it's like proving it. I
mm-hmm,
will prove it because I will sacrifice something that I actually might value.
yeah.
And then I always think of the opposite. So if that doesn't happen, then I will feel out of alignment because I'm not proving myself. I'm not proving my love through letting go of things that I actually enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because it's like you think of um like what is masochist? Is that the name that I'm trying to think of? Like where they'll whip
Yep.
themselves
Hmm.
in like the devotion to Jesus. And it's
Yeah.
like they'll think like, oh, I just sinned, I just fucked up. Like I need to whip myself on my back because that is what's required as payment. It's like
Pain.
payment,
I'll
the
go through
payment
pain.
of sin. Yes,
Yeah.
pain.
Mm.
And so then pain becomes their catalyst. So they then think that inflicting pain to initiate others is the way of truth.
Uh, yeah.
And that if you can't make it through that pain, then you're weak and you don't deserve to be in this reality, anyways.
Which you can obviously hear the distortion there with like,
Mm
would a loving God,
hmm. Mm hmm.
want that to happen?
Yeah, exactly. And this quote's coming up. I always bring up Cloud Atlas. I feel like you're gonna have to watch Cloud Atlas, and we're gonna have to do a whole episode about it because I've wanted to do a whole episode about it for so long.
Yeah.
Because it's just so fucking brilliant. Like it's so brilliant. And it's displaying exactly what we're talking about. It's showing how people's choices in one life
Mm.
polarize them in a certain way. And then in another life, those choices are coming through like demonic whispers coming through like emotions. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that the one with Tom Hanks?
Yes.
I've seen that
Yes.
movie. We can talk about it.
Okay.
I've seen
Okay. Okay. Well,
it.
we're gonna have to like I want to sit down and
Yeah,
structure it
separate.
out
Okay.
and
Yeah.
actually like maybe
Yeah.
we'll get on Zoom one night and watch it together or something
Okay.
like that. So we can write out because I've wanted to talk about this for so long. But
Yeah.
Tom Hanks's character in one of the lives, he's like, um, oh, what does he say? The weak are meat and the strong do eat. And
Mm.
he's like he's enforcing this domination pattern, this like if you're weak then you deserve to be food essentially. And
Mm.
then later on in another one of his lives he has the devil talking to him, and it's like the voice of his ancestors, but it's actually his voice coming through that feels like it's the devil because he's betrayed people in other lives.
Mm. Powerful.
And so he's then feeling possessed by this devil because of the choices that he made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask a question a while ago that maybe we could loop in here.
Mm-hmm.
Because at one point you said like a soul would choose to polarize negative. That always confuses me because if someone is seeking the love, like why would they choose? It's because they think it's the right way to go, right? Is that the answer with why a soul would polarize negative, like service to self?
Yeah, well, there's multiple layers because it's like we got the layer of the soul, and then we have the soul that then incarnates in bodies. And when the soul incarnates in physical bodies, that's where they then make the choice to polarize negatively. So it's like all souls are knowing of that love being the objective truth. And then there were realities created to have an opportunity to express free will rather than divine will, because divine will is the complete alignment to that source self. So it was like some souls were like, what would it be like if we had the opportunity to like express not aligned to this? What if we forgot and felt like we were, individual from, because it's individual, it's not separate. It's like, what if we forgot and felt like we were individual from ourselves so that then we could merge back in as the individual selves and feel the unity? That's what individuation is. It's becoming the individual soul to then feel that and choose back into unity. So once souls incarnated into the reality where they could forget that they were source or feel like they were individual from it, that's where ideas and perceptions started coming in around competition and around creating hierarchies and around creating. So it's like the whole service to self matrix formed from, over time, souls choosing to implement these ideas because they thought they were individual from the source of all things. And
Mm,
so this is where we then get to like there were beings in other dimensions that were telepathically resonating with that disconnection from source. So these thought forms started coming together and they started feeding each other. And so that's where a parasite enters. That's what Deborah and I call it. And so the parasite was literally like an acidic thought form. It started as an acidic idea, which would be to remove the alkaline and push so far into the acid scale that that's where thought forms exist. And so it's like we have these levels of how these thought forms are coming in. And so if someone thinks they're individual, a thought form comes in that says you're better than them, you're more worthy than them, you deserve this more than them, and they believe it, then that's the start of service to self polarity. And it just builds and builds over time. And so then you have souls who will leave their incarnations and they'll review their lives and they'll see how they've been choosing this negativity. And some souls at the beginning of these experiences, they would want to choose the negative kind of being. They would want to say, I'm going to have this experience and just to
mm,
see what it's like. But then that became souls falling in love with that experience. So it's like the acidic parasite bridged into the soul that was incarnating in these bodies. And it started creating this temptation for the soul to just keep being the villain over and over, or keep being the victim. Maybe some souls like it so much that they'll jump in and they'll get raped over and over and they'll get tortured and they'll get, and it's because it's a parasite, it's an infection. And so if
mm.
the soul then is supposed to jump into incarnations to heal their karma, and we have all these souls who are jumping into incarnations to just keep being the villain, then we have a buildup of this tumor, a buildup of this parasite. And so that's then where these souls who fell in love with being the villain figured out how to create technology so they could skip soul reviews. So they created these soul
That was my
recycle.
question because
Yeah.
you get to a certain point where you see what's going on. Oh, I don't want to do that anymore at the soul level, so you stop reincarnating. But what you're
Yep.
saying is you just skip that process. So
Yep.
there's no like admission of guilt or like seeing it for what it is.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so there's all of these beings who are immortal, like immortalized beings through this AI technology who who upload their consciousness to these databases, create new hybridized bodies, and then re-upload their consciousness to those bodies. So it's like they've created this barrier where they don't have to pop out and go through that soul review. So they just have this bubble where they're then recycling everything through itself.
Yeah. I was going to ask a question about halfway through, but I think I got my answer. So, us knowing this, right? You speaking about this, there's a temptation to want to fix this, to heal it, to tell people or to show people either that are in that loop that it's wrong or that they're doing it wrong, or just make people aware that might be neutral or the other polarization that this is happening. But I think the solution is it's not to convince anybody, it's not to show it. They have to kind of go through that experience. And meanwhile, what you and I can do is just build things out of love and show the alternate perspective to kind of walk the walk and talk the talk instead of just trying to convince people. Do I have that right?
Yeah, 100%. And we go through phases of convincing. I think it's just natural because we pop out of that suffering and we see what's going on and we see that we're all of a sudden connected and aware of things other people aren't. And it's like, let me convince them. Let
We
me,
got to tell
let
people
me
this.
gotta tell them. Let me wake them up. Let me, like another quote from the guides that I always use is you cannot drag another by their hair into the light.
Mm,
And it's just like, so it's the same thing of like build exactly like you said, we're building a container and then the door is there. And so then when souls feel that resonance, they'll see that there's an opportunity to then choose from their own free will to heal that or to step into
yeah.
that and acknowledge that. And this is where things get really hard in terms of morality for people because we're now in this ascension process where there's a lot of these souls and a lot of these bodies who are refusing to leave their physical bodies and they're refusing to go through soul reviews. And what that's doing is that's causing parasitic infections in the galactic body, in the
Mm,
universe. Like the whole universe is affected from this planet. It's you think of it like a body part. If there's an infestation in your leg, your whole body is going to be affected by that in some way,
mm.
and you could have a concern of dying, of the whole thing being taken out by this infestation. And so there are these beings like guardian avatars and things that I talk about and star seeds and people who have come here specifically to heal that stuff and specifically to provide those opportunities for others to heal in that way. And so I think the trust is that the help comes from me just doing what I'm supposed to do, and
Mm.
that like I don't have to outwardly go work at an animal shelter and work with elderly people and do these things. Like that will be great and it will naturally happen for all the people who are supposed to do that. But some people are just supposed to be, isolated for 10 years of their life and living with trees and talking to animals, and like it's so different for each person. And so there's just this need to trust that whatever I'm choosing, whatever I'm being called to do is in alignment with source. And that's where that
Divine
wisdom
will.
starts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That divine, because once you say you're in divine will, then you're going to create that in your life and you're going to be
Right.
shown where you're not in divine will so you can merge that back in with it.
Yeah. So let's tie this into Solos and what this is, right? Because this is our version of doing what we came here to do, to heal or to give people the opportunity, right, for an alternate architecture. And up until now, in my experience, there hasn't really been an alternate option for some of these things like business and money and like different interactions, right? So I want to talk about what we haven't talked too much about that since episode one, right? So let's just get into that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think to like preface, I feel that the difference with what Solos is compared to other things, and obviously for anyone listening, we're not creating inequality in worthiness, but we do have to recognize the level of awareness and consciousness that things are being built in. And we've seen a huge surgence of um, men's groups, of communities, of spiritual communities, of women's groups, of retreats, of all these things where people come together. They're learning about those first stages of trauma, of awakening, of going into it. But there still is a ceiling when it comes to people coming together around the things that we're talking about, the negative things, because I think that that is so important for the infrastructure to actually have that purity of intention and purity of foundation in making it unpenetrable, that there's no possible way for those service to self ideas or things to come into play.
To hijack or to
But yeah,
parasite. Yeah.
exactly. But right
Mhm.
now, there's a lot of these communities, a lot of these places in these retreats, but there's like a ceiling in what is talked about, in what is like human trafficking, dark magic, human sacrifice, why things turn into cults, all the stuff that we've been talking about.
Mhm.
People it's kind of this hush hush,
They avoid it.
this
Yeah.
this taboo. And even like the extraterrestrials and the galactic stuff, it's like there's a ceiling that then is created, and it's like you can come to these places for community connection, for support, for healing, but then you kind of got to find the people in there who are down to talk about those ideas,
Mm.
because there's going to be little groups, there's going to be specific people who are like available to talk about that stuff. But there's going to be all these other people who don't really, they're like,
Yeah.
that's not really for me. I don't want to look at that. I don't. And I think with the thing that we're saying is like, okay, that's cool, that's great. We have to look at it. It doesn't have to be forced into our faces right
As I
now.
was gonna say, is it a requirement that people who operate with us talk about it? That's not necessarily what you're saying, or is it?
Not talk about it to the extent that we talk about it,
But just be
but
aware of it.
be aware of it. Everyone who moves into an ascension reality has to be aware of the negativity. They have to. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean they have to investigate it like I do and immerse themselves in it, but they have to be aware of what's going on, because
Why? Why? Yeah.
eventually that's what heals the planet and what puts us all into a positive dimension that is individual from that negative dimension.
Mm.
So, in order for that ascension reality to fully crystallize, everyone in that reality has to be aware of the things they're saying no to. And so that's the permission, that's the boundary, that's the protection. But people won't go as far as figuring out what they have to say no to, because they're scared of what that means. And
Mm.
they'll get overwhelmed by the feeling of it, by the powerlessness of it, the hopelessness of it. And so it's like same with the extraterrestrials and the galactic stuff. It's like we were talking about this, and it's like we realize like how integral it is at a certain stage of people's journeys. And again, it doesn't mean that it's going to be forced on people when they're not ready for it, or when, it's like it's all about timing. But the environment where those things can be talked about in a way that's not like, holy shit, we need to fix this, this is what's going wrong, we need to control everything, we're the victims, we need to stop these people. It's much more of a mature awareness of it, and that's what actually allows that container to be held and to not allow that stuff in. It's like you think of ayahuasca shamans, it's like they're all aware of the demonic beings, of the negative aliens, of the astral entities, of the all of the different things that
Hmm.
could come in through people. The shamans are aware of it, and that's how they hold the container, because they can say no to it. And so it's the same exact thing with
Mm.
anything else that we're building that's a group experience.
Yeah. That's a good analogy to use. So it's just the awareness of it that creates the protection of it. And what you're saying with some of these other groups that, some of their intentions might be positive facing, that if there are things that they're avoiding, that almost creates like a potential breeding ground for the hijacking. That's what you're saying, right? Like
Exactly.
people can come in and have this facade that they're on board with all these things, and maybe they are, but also they can use it to like that's like the perfect hiding spot, right? To like in plain sight to bring in some of these things.
100%. And maybe it's not even that person that does something fucked up. Maybe there's an entity that's attached to that person, and
Sure.
that entity comes into the space and it starts feeding thoughts to somebody else. And it's like convincing them of these things, or it's like it doesn't even have to be that person specifically, because
Yeah.
entities can come in and then try to mess with any cracks or any seals or anything that's unsealed, and that's how they kind of pull that stuff through. And so
Yeah.
that was longer preface than I thought it was going to be, but I think that's
All right, now we can
that's
have the
really
conversation.
it's really important, because that is the thing that we're acknowledging right now doesn't exist at a large scale,
Yeah.
at a large scale collective societal experience. There still isn't a container that has been built like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm not sure I had thought of that, even as you and I are building this together, how important it is to hold the negative things in our awareness
Mhm.
as we go. And what does that mean? That means talking about it, right? And we have a men's circle coming up, um, where we get to kind of pick and choose the topics that we discuss, right? And we don't always necessarily have to go towards the like the negative things, but we're not avoiding them, and they're written in the ethos of why we exist, and that is the protection. That's the like the constant awareness of it creates the potential awareness if something like that were to try to come in. Like, is that also part of
Exactly.
it? Is that we're going to face some of these things along the way because, or just the intention of it like prevents them from even attempting to?
Um, we're definitely gonna face it. I don't think it minimizes the like overload of attempted infiltration, but there's still going to be that experience because that's what like gatekeepers are as well. It's like you and I and many others have the ability to hold those front lines. Well, there's other people who will become aware of that stuff, but they know like, oh, they got this handled. Like I don't have to be
Mm,
in this warrior like yeah I'm aware of it, yeah I'm not giving permission to it, but they got it handled. Like, and that's I think the feeling of the different layers of it too, because it's like there is going to be it's like because I see it less like I see it as just energy currents coming together. And if this energy current is Solos and it's building up all of this electricity and all this vibration, there it's going to pull energy currents to it and it's going to be pulling it so it can then
mm,
repel what's not coming in and allow in what is supposed to come in. So
yeah,
I think like that's again where people get so deterred from what the ascension process is. It's like, you mean I have to continue to to like discern and to be aware of these things like trying to come into my space? And it's like, yeah, you do. And at some point you reach a state of such sturdiness that you hold the power to recognize that it's even planning to be attempted. And it you can divert it from there. And so it's the mastery, it's the building up of that. And so the intention sets the protection, and then the protection like fulfills itself from us being that like repellent to any of
hmm
that stuff that needs to come in. And sometimes it's like this is where the balance comes in of like um maybe there's some sort of conflict where the person who you find out is the source, you know, it's like and that's the thing, people are like, well, how do you know who the source is? How do you like, how would you? And it's like that's the level that you can get to when you're holding that container. It's like you can feel where these energies are infiltrating from, and you can feel if this person is embracing that energy or if they're just caught in it and they don't know what's going on. And when you let them know, you can work through it and everything's all good. And they're like, oh, cool. Thank God you told me. Like, I wasn't even
yeah,
aware. And so it's the fine balance of not going too far into repelling it and pushing it away.
sure.
Um, well, kind of seeing what the different kind of step by step process is.
Yeah, and that discernment comes from you yourself having gone through all the whatever the fears and like your card for recognizing that in someone else, whether they're being influenced or they are the source, is because you've done your own work to like when you felt that yourself through fear, I think is what it is, right? Like if I'm afraid of something happen, people cringe at the at fear or afraid, but what I mean by that is just like some sort of outcome that is undesirable.
Mm-hmm.
Then you investigate that and you can determine yourself where that's coming from or how that's manifested in your life. And it's at such a felt level for you that you're able to like that gives you the power, the ability to detect that in others
Mm-hmm.
from like a from a vantage point that is not judgmental, but you know how to meet it. You know what it looks like, what it feels like, and you can make your own determination on how to navigate that or how to confront that with that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only because of that that I have the ability to feel it now and to exercise the things that need to happen in order to, you know, shift those states and shift those experiences.
Yeah, which brings us back to the divine will of there's this level of trust that the experiences that I'm going through are here for my benefit, even if they feel really negative, right? We don't know the whole story yet, but like as we go through those things, we're building the armor by which we operate from.
Yes,
And
exactly.
sometimes we feel like, okay, I got enough armor, like I'm good. Like we go through these different things, like here we fucking go again, right? Or like another
Mhm.
thing that I have to resolve. But all is it's doing is making you stronger and making you able to discern these other things in the external as you go.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's the um like the armor is almost the process of being removed too, because it's like the protection is coming from that like radiant light. So if
Mm,
we are trying to protect through like armor, then
yeah,
we're doing that from a state of like powerlessness or control or shielding ourselves, when really the goal is to recognize that the power comes from being completely open, but in that openness you're not letting things in. It's a
yeah.
complete wall of this doesn't come past me right now.
My sports analogy is it's the defense by way of offense, right?
Exactly.
You're not holding back, you're actually pushing forward, and that pushing forward with the light is what keeps the darkness away.
And it's offense by the way of defense. Like I always say that
Yeah.
too. It's like if you even if you find yourself on the defense in these in a psychic attack, it's like
Hmm.
some being comes in and is psychically attacking you and you just get like pummeled and you're just in fear and you're in shock for a couple hours, and I'm speaking from experience again. It's like that can become a win. That can become a win
Mm,
when you recognize that you just called that to yourself in order to make it a win, in order to learn, in order to realize that, oh wow, they just pulled out all their cards on me and I'm okay. I All that happened was I felt fear. And so from that those experiences, I was then able to see that their biggest strength is actually their biggest weakness.
mm,
That fear is the only thing that they have. And when you don't believe any type of fear, then they can't do anything to you.
mm. That's huge. I was just working with a client the other day that I said the quicker you can bridge the gap between recognizing that you're in fear and then becoming curious with how it's serving you is like you start to become unstoppable because it's like you're saying, fear is the only way they can get you. So once you understand
Mm-hmm.
that, you can't be gotten by it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's sometimes difficult, right? Because when you're in it, it feels like, well, I understood that, but like this is different. This is
Mm-hmm.
this is more, this is bigger than what I was referring to before, but it's never the case, right? That's how fear operates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
False evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
That's one of
Mhm.
my favorite
Yeah.
um whatever they're called,
Acronym. Yeah.
acronyms. Yeah.
Mm.
Because it's exactly what we were saying too about the individuation and being individual versus being the same being. Believing in the individuality as the source is false evidence appearing real.
Mm.
I'm looking at the lamp, I'm looking at you, and I'm seeing that you're separate or individual from me. And if I believe that and then make my life around that, that is a life of fear because it's built around false evidence that has appeared real and I've made
Yeah.
it real.
And that's the cloaking of it is that oh it feels very very real.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
and they're masters at cloaking that and having that be the thing that you experience, but yeah, like I said, if you can continually come back to and just make it like a program, right, that runs
Mhm.
as soon as you feel it, okay, like what's going on here, and like you
Yeah.
step out of the victim mentality and you can go on offense again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the biggest like deciding in the moment that the fear isn't true is like the first step that's needed. And it's
Yep.
like you might not figure out exactly where it's coming from in the next couple hours or the next day, but if you can say this is not true and I choose faith in my heart, then you'll be able to process that fear, because that's the thing is like it comes up and we hold on to it versus saying, well, if I'm not choosing it, then it's just going to leave and it's just going to process through my
Mm.
body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing as building something as a team, as a group, as a tribe. It's like it's still a singular being, and it's all a matter of allowing things to process through that container so that the ideas and the energies don't come up and then get held onto and then used to create with.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting. All right, well, we're starting to come to a close here. Is there
Yeah.
something that feels incomplete, or what circles do we need to close here? Does this feel pretty good?
No, that felt good. I was wondering where the conversation was gonna go, and it's funny because it's like we both had places where we wanted to take it, and it was all combined. And yeah, I feel really good about everything. Um, is there anything coming up for you?
No, yeah, I feel like I had questions answered that I didn't even know I had questions for. So it's good to
Hmm.
it's almost like we're going like we're going to the building blocks of the things that we're talking about, and we're almost like simplifying it
Yeah,
in a way that makes it easy for me to understand what I know already believe, but it strengthens it, it bolsters it because I believe it now at a more knowing level, I think is how I
yeah,
would describe that.
yeah, exactly. And I just want to say, like, the reason again why we are doing the men's group and why we are building Solos is because we want these spaces to be available for all of us to have questions and talk about this type of stuff because it's a much different experience to go through becoming aware of these things with people who are also doing it and have an understanding of what's going on compared to being alone at your house and having all this stuff from the internet shoved in your face, which again, personal experience, that's how I went through it at first. And I had to deal with the shock and the trauma and the fear um and eventually I was able to kind of just then be the person who helped others understand when they needed it to be understood. So please come join our group call, our men's group call. Whenever it feels aligned. And if there's any topics or questions that you feel fear around talking about,
Mm,
like fear of anything, fear of even having a conversation about it, like I think that if you let us know, we'll definitely be able to start incorporating that into our content and into the group calls.
mhm. And there might be women watching this as well. I wonder, could we start a women's group? Is that something that could be a part of
Yeah,
this?
well, I mean, that's what the infrastructure is for, is that like obviously we're not going to be running the fucking women's circle, but like we can provide the structure and
Yeah.
the process for any women who want to start their own women's group. We can provide that help and we can provide that consultation. Absolutely.
So for any women who have made it an hour into this podcast and are still watching,
Hmm.
there's the call out to them. But
Definitely.
and I also want to put a bookmark into something next episode because I we didn't get to this time, but the difference between this herd mentality and hive mind and like the
Hmm.
tribe, because we're building the tribe, right? We're not trying to build a herd mentality to where people are sacrificing their individuality, but there's something to this tribe thing of what you just talked about, right? Like the versus like being like the lone wolf. We've talked about that a
Hmm.
lot.
Hmm.
But the benefits of building the tribe, being around the tribe, like to be around your people is just like
Hmm.
uplifting and inspiring, and you are able to access more parts of you. Like other people bring that out of you, and then you like just by nature of you rising to that occasion, you bring it out of them, and it's this mutually beneficial connection. I want to go a little bit deeper on that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that next time.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wrote that down.
Cool. All
All
right.
right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time.